Hey there guys, Mr. Luna here, just stopping by to share another video lesson with you. I hope that everybody is doing well and that you had a great and exciting week. So today is finally Friday, and today I want to simply cover a few PowerPoints with you guys. So let me just pull that up here. So let's see, where did my video screen go? Let me pull that back up. All right, so there we go. I'll put it over here. All right, guys, so today I want to start reviewing cognition. Cognition is a very, very heavy chapter on the AP test, and I simply want you guys to get a refresher. So as we work on this today, I want you to sit back, take some notes, really listen, and try to jot down any questions that you might have for me so that way I can answer them for you later. But let's go ahead and get started. So when we talk about memory, we're talking about the way a person is. We're talking about certain things, right? Memory is what allows us to continue being the individual that we are. So memory is defined as learning that has persisted over time. Explicit memories are memories of facts and experiences. So explicit memories are memories that you can declare, things that you would actually tell people about. So explicit memories are facts and experiences. Now, implicit memories, on the other hand, are um, just more associated with information that's retained. It's more associated with information that is a process. So this information pertains to things like jogging, walking, driving, things of that nature. So procedural memory is like riding a bike and like riding a car, right? And when we talk about procedural memories, we're talking about implicit memories. So explicit memories are memories you can declare, that you can tell people about, like, hey, I went to the zoo yesterday. Implicit memories are non declarative memories, memories that we don't tell people about. Like, you don't go up to somebody and say, hey, this is how I tie my shoe. It's just not done that way. So, explicit and implicit memories. Now, let's go dig a little deeper. There are certain kinds of memory, right? We have recall memory and recognition. So recall is a measure of memory in which a person must retrieve information learned earlier, for example, an FRQ test or an open-ended test. This is testing for your recall. A recognition style of memory is more associated with multiple choice type of testing. So that way, whenever you try to differentiate recall and recognition, try to remember recall is more like FRQ, open-ended, and recognition is more about recognizing. So you have to have something there to circle it. So it's more like multiple choice. And lastly, relearning, right? Something, whenever you relearn a concept or a chapter, it happens a lot more much faster because you've already learned the content, you're just trying to relearn it. So essentially when we engage in reviews, it's a lot easier to take in the information because you've already seen it in the past. So moving on. Now, that was memory, right? And the kinds of memory. Now we're going to talk a little bit briefly about memory and storage. So when we talk about encoding memories are just like associated with processing the information or taking the information in, making sense of what the information is, encoding it, right? You want to find out what the code is in there to really get to know the information. Storage is the process of retaining encoded information over time. So, depending on how well you encode information or how well you pay attention to information, then you will be able to store it or create a long term memory. If you're paying attention very vaguely, then you don't necessarily build a long term memory. Per se, it's more of a short term memory, which will decay very, very fast on. So finally, retrieval is the process of getting information out of the memory system and into the working memory or short-term memory in order to use it. So if you know how to change a tire, right, you don't oftentimes think about changing a tire every day, every single time of your life. You just access that information, you retrieve it whenever you need it. So that was encoding, storage, and retrieval. This is the memory system. Now, storing memories. When we talk about the actual storage of memories, you guys need to know that they are associated with the hippocampus. The hippocampus helps processes like explicit memories get to be stored. The cerebellum allows us to store information that regards movement, so it's associated with those kinds of memory. And the association areas, right? We didn't talk about them too much, but the cerebral cortex has a process that is completed by associating parts together. This is just association areas. So you can see these association areas be on top of um, the parietal lobe. So awesome. Now we have covered the hippocampus, cerebellum, and cerebral cortex. We're still under the first PowerPoint of cognition. Let's try to speed it up. All right, so when we process information, there are certain ways to process it. We can undergo effortful processing, or we could also undergo automatic processing. Effortful processing is intentionally encoding information that requires attention and effort. It's whenever you're really, really trying to pay attention to something or a lesson because you really want to learn it and you don't want to forget. Conversely, automatic processing is the unconscious encoding of incidental information, such as space, time, and of well-learned information, such as word meanings. An example of automatic processing would be the act of listening to or reading words you already know and understand. So it's kind of like opening up a dictionary and just processing all that information, or opening up your textbook. But right, you open up your textbook and you can automatically process things like attached, monkeys, surrogate mother, right? All of that information you've already pretty much gathered. It's not effortful. It's very automatic when processing. So moving on. When we are effortfully processing information, some information is more easily encoded and remembered than others. This can be also due to the experience that you have in the world, right? So if you're effortfully processing information that relates to math, but you're not understanding it, and the guy next to you is understanding it, that means that perhaps they have a better understanding of math. So that's what we mean by processing information, right? Effortfully. Now, when we encode information through shallow processing, which is encoding on a very, very basic level, based on primarily the structure and appearance of words, it can be very, very easy to forget that information. So if you got out from your car and you were walking down the street and you noticed that there was a really nice restaurant, but you didn't pay attention to the name of the restaurant, then chances are you're not going to remember. You shallowly processed the restaurant. Now, conversely, deep processing is the encoding of information semantically based on the meaning of a word, its context or significance. So, deep processing is more like you see the name of the restaurant, you see that it's called John's. You had a kid named John, so now you have that connection, and now you won't forget that the restaurant's name was John because your kid's name was John. And whenever you're on Fifth Street, John's is there, and you can go eat because you love their food. So that is the difference between shallow processing and deep processing. Also, additionally, we learn better as we age due to the fact that we can build upon previous knowledge of the understanding that we have of the world. And this is known as the working memory, the short-term memory that focuses conscious, active processing of information and of information retrieved from a long-term memory. So working memory is just essentially your short-term memory, right? Your short-term memory is your working memory because it is what allows you to use explicit long-term memories in the now, in the future, whenever you want. So it's pretty cool. Awesome. So that's been 8 minutes. Let's try to see if we can cover another PowerPoint, guys, because I think we'll have a 15-minute uh, limit. So here we go. Here we have the other. I think it was this one. Yeah, it was this one. Awesome. So let's keep talking about memory and cognition. Your test is almost here, guys. I really want you to be successful. So just keep paying attention. You're doing really well. Go ahead and take these notes as we're carrying forth. And if you have any questions, please jot them down. So, alrighty, when we talk about short-term memory, right, we've been talking about memory, cognition, mental processes, things of that nature. But short-term memory, we already know that the short-term memory is called the working memory. The working memory it's associated with the short-term memory because it's what you use every day in order to communicate your old or long-term memories. Now, sensory memory does relate to short-term memories, but sensory memory it's its own monster on itself. So before a memory even becomes a memory, they are sensory bits of information. So sensory information is sent to you by either via touch, taste, smell, however, right? And this sensory information then becomes part of your working memory, which then triggers your long-term memories, and then you have a bundle of cognition at play. So it's pretty cool. Moving on. Iconic memory refers specifically to the icons or the pictures, the mental sensory visual stimulations or images that you can retrieve or remember. I, Echoic memory is more about the sounds that we can remember. So whenever you're at home, right, and you hear a car crash and you're indoors, you know that the car just crashed because, well, you have echoic memory, and these memories allow you to retrieve long-term experiences in the now, so you can know exactly what's going on. Now, long-term memories, on the other hand, they are relatively permanent and limitless. We don't have a certain storage. We don't have a limit to store memories. It's pretty much unlimited. And within long-term memories, right, we also have things like procedural memories. Procedural memories are more automatic memories that regard a process that we learned at some point in time that was very effortful, but at this point it's not so effortful. Kind of like riding a bike. Once you learn how to ride a bike, it's completely done and dealt with. You successfully learned how to ride a bike. There's no way to forget that. So procedural memories. Now, long-term potentiation, when we do talk about long-term potentiation, this is just an increase in neuron firing potential after a brief rapid stimulation. So long-term potentiation just regards the power of an experience becoming a long-term memory. So the theory of long-term potentiation and emotions is linked to memory and has been confirmed in lab tests and on patients by using drugs that block LTP. Patients with their LTP processes blocked experience reduced memories and speed efficiency. So long-term potentiation, an example of this might be like you may not remember your grades from fourth grade, but you certainly remember that first breakup, first love, and close relative that passed away. So long-term potentiation relates to these kinds of memories that are more potential, or that have more potential to be stored as a long-term than memories that are not so long-term potentiation. Awesome. So now, long-term aids, right? When we talk about the long-term aids and what allows us to retrieve those long-term memories, well, retrieval cues are one thing, right? If you walk into Whataburger and that's where your girlfriend broke up with you, well, you might remember that, hey, my girlfriend broke up with me here. So there are certain retrieval cues that allow us to retrieve certain memories. Mood congruency is the tendency to recall memories that are consistent with one's current mood. So typically, whenever you're mad or whenever you're happy, you tend to actually remember memories like those more because that's the mood that you have. So mood congruency allows you to remember memories based on the mood that you're currently at, that you have had in the past or have experienced in the past. Now, when we talk about remembering, right, this is an important thing to mention. The serial position effect is whenever people apply for a job, or let's say that you're dealing with a list of items. The serial position effect states that we, as human beings, will only remember more efficiently the beginning of the list and the end of the list. The people or the items in the middle of the list are very, very hard to forget, which can impact the terms that we remember and how accurately we remember. So people typically are more remembered or items on the beginning and at the end, not the middle. That is what the serial position effect states. Now, the stereotype threat, right? The stereotype threat just simply confirms a stereotype within yourself, or like let's say that somebody's saying like, hey, you look like you're really good at math because this and that, right? Well, the stereotype threat might get you to feel the situation and feel to be at risk, and you might even conform to this stereotype. So stereotype threat. Now, there are several ways to remember things. We did talk about it: chunking, mnemonics, spacing effect, testing effect. Chunking is just like a phone number. You chunk in that way to remember easily. Mnemonic is a memory aid like an acronym, like ROGBIB. The spacing effect is just spacing information you need to learn, and the testing effect is testing yourselves whenever you should learn or have mastered something. Now remember, anything that you cover, you will forget, so you need to keep uncovering